Well, it's Sunday the 18th of March, and the cold I had has gone to my chest, which is bad news because that often means pneumonia for me. So this might be the last video for a while. So I wanted to try and answer questions raised by Ben Crow, Krogh, and Jay Clark about choosing guitars and about woods and sizes and strings and things like that. Not going to mess about, not going to play lots of things. If you're starting out playing guitar and you're going to buy your first or one of your first guitars, don't fall into thinking you have to buy a dreadnought or a jumbo. Dreadnoughts, this is a 12 fret dreadnought, but the same applies to anything, are big beasts. They're big boxes, they're deep, a lot of stuff for you to put your arm around, put your shoulders out, and they're not made for playing sitting down. The same with Gibson style jumbos. They're made for performing while standing up, but thankfully now there are more smaller guitars on the market, and this one is kind of a version of a Gibson L00, and of course I'm more Martin focused, so my Collins 000, which was the largest Martin you could get from 1902 till about 1929, or was it 34, is much more comfortable. It doesn't have to be a Collins or a Martin or a Gibson or anything like that. It can be if you've got the budget, and of course that's your first consideration, the budget. Thankfully the Far Eastern makers are now making smaller instruments. Now the next step down from a jumbo or a dreadnought is the OM or the 000 in Martin terms, which are pretty nicely designed. They're the 14 fret versions of this, with the OM being a standard scale 25.4 and the 000, for some reason that I don't understand, going down to 24.9. It does make a difference, that half an inch. The original 12 frets were standard scale 25.4, as is that one. So the second consideration after body size is the comfort factor. Most guitars now tend to come as standard with a 1 11/16 neck, nut width. That this is a 1 3/4, which is still too narrow for me. 1 11/16 is even narrower, and that came in 1934 with the Gibson original jumbo and the first Martin 14 fret dreadnoughts, and they were designed as rhythm guitars rather than fingerstyle guitars. Now I know a lot of people can do wondrous things playing fingerstyle and all sorts of stuff on thin necks, but that might not apply to you. Just work out whether it does or not, because if not, look for something with a wider neck. My ideal is 1 13/16. I get on perfectly well with a 1 7/8 neck. In fact, one of my 12 strings has a 2-inch neck, and I can do a thumb over E-shaped chord and things like that anyway. So think about nut width and the string spacing. Find something that is suitable for you. Woods, tone woods. This is Nerdsville. This is not actually as vitally important as some would say it is, unless you're going up into the £5,000 mark, and even so. I have guitars made of East Indian rosewood, like my two Collins here. This is what East Indian rosewood typically looks like. It's very pretty, and I have mahogany guitars, and frankly I don't have a preference. There is a slight difference in tone. The mahogany is more direct and more simple, and the rosewood is slightly more complex. Ben Crow asked me about which was best as a singer-songwriter. I would say it really doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. It's more appropriate to find the instrument that suits you. The tops are usually made of various spruces. People pay extra for Adirondack red spruce, or Engelmann, or what they call German spruce or Italian spruce. It's all European spruce, pick your ABs. Most of my guitars have Sitka spruce, which comes from the Pacific Northwest area, and it's perfectly good wood. Yes, there are advantages, very, very subtle advantages for the real guitar nerds. I have one Adirondack top guitar and it is wonderful, but it's not absolutely necessary. It's more necessary who built it and how well it was built. And this one has maple on the back. You wouldn't know, this looks like brown gravy. And that was the wood used in preference on many of the jazz guitar, the archtop guitars, because it had a little bit more projection, a little bit more mid-range power. Don't worry about it. Cedar tops are fine. I had a cedar top guitar that was made in Japan that lasted for ages and ages. The general intelligence is that spruce tops get better as they age, and cedar tops start out well and fade out. I haven't experienced that myself. If it sounds good to you, generally speaking, it's probably going to get better the more you play it. So think about the size of the guitar, think about the neck, how it suits you and your style of playing and what you want to do on it. Don't worry too much about the woods. Don't go for laminate if you can avoid it. Laminate back and sides is alright. Don't go for laminate tops. I love 12 fret guitars. I find that they're more ergonomic all around. That's my opinion. Strings. I have a very simple philosophy. I've tried them all, and I always come back to these because they're frankly pretty easy to get. These are D'Addario strings. I have no special arrangement with them. They don't send me free sets of strings like they do for other people. I don't care much for bronze strings, so I will go for the phosphor bronze, an idea that came in the 70s and has proved pretty good. I don't buy coated strings simply because I don't need them. They don't give me any extra life because I don't have acid sweat, and I think they lack a little bit of clarity. That's my opinion. So for my jumbo, my dreadnoughts and my arch tops, I tend to buy EJ17s. For my dreadnoughts, I swap out the first and the second, the top E and the B, for light gauge because my Collings dreadnoughts don't need that extra power in the trebles, frankly. But again, that's my opinion. And for anything smaller than a dreadnought or a jumbo, I use D'Addario EJ16s. One of the advantages of D'Addario is that you can get them in multi-packs. That's a 3-pack, that's a 10-pack. I believe they do 25 packs as well. Never gone that far. But they are fairly consistent. If I do have a problem with D'Addario strings, and I have had problems with D'Addario strings, I get straight onto them, and they don't necessarily put the problem right, but they do send you some other replacement strings. But I'm not talking about taking advantage of that. I did get a batch of strings that were badly wound at one time. They've cured that problem. They did make the barrels at the end of the strings out of aluminium instead of brass, which was a terrible failure because they used to cut through the aluminium. They don't do that anymore, and I got one batch of 10 sets where the bass E was dead, and they told me that that sometimes happens with a wound string. If some aspect of it was a little bit out of tolerance and they can only batch test them, well, they replaced them straight away. But generally speaking, I find them very consistent, very reliable. I'm sure there are other good strings on the market. Round core strings are good if you want a lower tension. Personally, I find that the tension of strings is quite important, which is why I wouldn't put a lighter set on a Dreadnought, as I think it needs a certain amount of tension to draw the best out of a larger top. I don't see any point in going lighter than a light gauge string. And if you're learning, maybe it's a good idea to go for extra light beginning, but you need to go up to a proper light gauge pretty soon to get your calluses and to get your strength built up. So I think that's about all. I hope I have answered every question. If I haven't, please respond to me in the comments below, and maybe that'll give me an idea for another thing. Oh, just one little plug. I've still got some of these Princess Mary replica boxes that I've sent to a lot of people now on in the States. They are versions of the 1914 issue of the real thing, which are very expensive, but these replica boxes do the thing just as well. If you've got valuable picks and you want to keep all your bits and pieces together, it's a good way to do it. You take that on stage with you or wherever you're going to do, and you take out what you need and then you put them back in the box, and the box goes in the case. I can do these. The postage costs as much as the item actually to the States, but $30. So you can contact me via the Acoustic Guitar Forum or the unofficial Martin Guitar Forum by private message, and I'm happy to take the payment by PayPal. That's all I wanted to say to you. So have a good week, month, year ahead, and I hope to be speaking to you again soon. All the best.